I was 6 hours away from marrying the woman I thought I'd spend forever with when she looked me in the eye and said, "I'm going to let him get me pregnant. You'll either accept that or leave." She meant him. Theo Vale, the man she'd been sleeping with in my home, under my roof, while telling our son I was just the guy who paid the bills. My spine didn't break in that moment, but something else did. The belief that love, loyalty, or truth had ever meant a thing to her. Cambria wasn't asking for permission. She was flaunting her betrayal like a trophy, daring me to crumble. But what she didn't know was that I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to fight back the way she expected. I was going to end her story and rewrite mine from the ashes. Before we dive into today's story, take a moment to share where you're watching from. We love seeing how our stories bring people together from every corner of the world. Your thoughts and comments are what make this community so special, and we're truly grateful to have you here. If you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story filled with drama, resilience, and unexpected twists. Now, settle in, get comfortable, and maybe grab your favorite drink, because this is a tale you won't want to miss. Let's get started. She slammed the door with the same precision she used to break people's spirits. No tears, no hesitation, just cold finality as she grabbed the handle of her Louis Vuitton trunk and wheeled it out of the brownstone we both once called home. My name was still etched into the deed. My son's shoes were still scattered by the staircase. And yet, Cambria walked away like none of it ever belonged to her. I watched her from the top landing, gripping the mahogany railing so hard I thought it would splinter under my hands. Jasper's drawing, a crayon sketch of our family with uneven smiles, was still pinned to the fridge behind me. She didn't say goodbye to him, not even a glance. There are 1,000 different ways to leave someone, but Cambria's method was silence, the kind that doesn't echo, it just disappears. And yet, the silence screamed louder than any courtroom confession. The betrayal had rotted long before she ever said the words. A week earlier, I'd stood across from her in the parlor, beneath the sweeping chandelier she insisted on installing from Murano. She sipped her Bordeaux and stared me dead in the face. "Theo is going to get me pregnant," she said, swirling the wine like she hadn't just detonated my entire life. "I want a child who's not yours, one who belongs in this world." I blinked. "You mean in my world?" She laughed softly. "No, Julian. Mine." Theo Vale, her lover, her creative partner, our son's art tutor, the man I'd trusted inside our walls. The man who wore vintage Alexander McQueen to my birthday dinner and toasted to loyalty. The man who played piano in our den while Cambria watched from the sofa, legs draped over velvet, eyes glittering with something I didn't recognize until it was too late. Conquest. Cambria didn't want a partner. She wanted a mirror, and I refused to reflect her madness. Now, she was gone, and the sound of her departure was a vacuum, not a collapse. I looked down at the hardwood floors we'd fought over in renovation meetings. I could still hear her sneering. "White oak is too humble. You want the world to think you're just another upstate transplant playing minimalist chic?" God forbid we looked like we had taste and restraint. The brownstone was an inheritance from my grandfather, a brutalist turned Renaissance space in the heart of the Upper East Side. It had history, not the kind Cambria could buy from an art fair in Basel, the kind that required grit, backbone, and the willingness to hold ground even when it was falling beneath your feet. It was, in every way, mine, and for years, she treated it like a set piece in a play she never let me direct. I stepped outside as the town car's headlights ignited the street. The chauffeur didn't bother looking at me. Cambria was seated in the back seat already scrolling through her phone, her wrist tilted toward the window like an afterthought. I half expected her to give me one last dramatic flourish, a cruel smile, a parting shot. She didn't. Just the faint click of her window rolling up. Just like that, She disappeared into the Manhattan night. Inside, I stood in the dim light of the foyer, listening to the silence press against my ribs like wet cement. I walked to the study, my study, the only room she hadn't defiled with her aesthetic interventions. And there, I opened the drawer and pulled out the envelope Jonas Crane had given me 2 weeks earlier. My attorney, my last real ally. Inside was the truth, the surveillance report, the real paternity tests, and the asset transfers Cambria had initiated without my knowledge. But I wasn't ready to unleash those yet. Not then, because this wasn't about revenge. Not yet. It was about removal. Cambria had cut the cord. She just didn't know I was going to burn the rope. That night, I slept in Jasper's bed, not because I was weak, but because he needed me. He curled into me like he had when he was 3, small hands around my wrist like he thought I might disappear too. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just stared at the ceiling and thought, she brought him into this house. She said the words out loud. She chose him, over me, over her son, over everything, and she expected to win. The next morning, I brewed coffee in the silent kitchen. Jasper shuffled in, still in his Spider-Man pajamas, hair sticking out in all directions. "Mom gone again?" he asked, like it was Tuesday. Because in his life, her absence had become a pattern, a rhythm of disappointment. I nodded. He opened the fridge and pulled out a yogurt. "Can I paint later?" "Anything you want?" I said, kneeling to kiss his forehead. "This is your house." His eyes lit up, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a version of my son not burdened by the tension in the walls. Cambria's absence had already lifted something from the air, and that's when it clicked. She hadn't just betrayed me emotionally. She hadn't just cheated. She'd orchestrated a psychological heist, warping Jasper's sense of security, manipulating his loyalty with whispers and staged affection. I'd spent years trying to hold this family together, only to realize she was prying at the seams every time I left the room. But now the stage was mine. I made one phone call, to Jonas. "It's time," I said. "Time for what?" he asked. "To turn the tide," I replied, "and take back everything." That evening, I stood at the top of the stairs again. Same spot, different man. The air felt less like grief and more like potential. The kind of potential that's electric, that stings the tips of your fingers when you realize you can change the rules of the game because you were the one funding the board all along. Cambria wanted war. I was building a fortress, one she'd never penetrate again. Cambria didn't reach out for 3 days. Not a text, not a call, not even a message through her lawyer. Just silence. That's how she operated. She weaponized absence, counting on others to fill it with self-blame. I wasn't playing that role anymore. I wasn't pacing the floor, wondering where I'd failed. This time, I was watching her crumble without lifting a single finger. Jonas sent me a message the morning of the 4th day. "The transfer requests you flagged have been frozen. Cambria will find out soon." Perfect. Let the silence sting. Let her realize the safety net she'd been sewing, under my nose, was now shredded. While Jasper painted downstairs, I sat in the study and reviewed the document Jonas had quietly assembled. A dossier, really. It detailed every financial account Cambria had tried to redirect, every property she'd secretly appraised, every meeting with Theo she disguised as a gallery tour. But the pièce de résistance, the prenup she had signed, under no duress, in the presence of a notary, with a clause so explicit it may as well have been tattooed across her spine. Infidelity resulting in pregnancy voids spousal claims. She had laughed when I first brought it up, years ago. "You think I'd ever need Theo or anyone else to get me pregnant?" she had said. "Please, Jules, I'm not that woman." Turns out, she was exactly that woman. And now she was going to learn what that meant. That afternoon, I received a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Not here. Same rooftop, 9 p.m. Don't be late." See, same rooftop. She meant the one above the Harper, the hotel where we used to meet before we ever lived together. Before I knew what she really was. Before I mistook ambition for love. Before I mistook seduction for partnership. At 9 p.m., I stood at the edge of the rooftop, the Manhattan skyline yawning behind me like a stage. Cambria arrived 15 minutes late, as always. She was dressed in winter white, silk trench, stilettos, hair pulled back so tight it made her cheekbones knife-sharp. "You froze my accounts," she said instead of greeting. "You tried to steal from me," I replied. "Consider it balance." She walked to the edge and stared out. "You think this is about money?" "No, it's about your ego thinking you could ruin me and walk away clean." Her mouth twitched. "You think you're untouchable, Julian, but this world doesn't reward good men. It rewards the ones who don't flinch. And yet, here you are, flinching." She turned sharply. "I'm pregnant." Silence. Just that. Not a preamble, not a plea. A cold statement meant to detonate. I blinked once. "Congratulations. I'm sure Theo's thrilled." She looked at me as if I'd spat in her face. "You're really going to pretend this doesn't affect you?" "It doesn't," I said, voice even. "You made a choice. You crossed the line. And the line bites back." She stepped closer. "You don't get to be righteous. You neglected me. Emotionally, intellectually. You were so wrapped in your legacy, your firm, your clean little world, that you stopped seeing me." "You mean I stopped enabling your fantasy life? Forgive me for not rearranging reality to fit your narcissism." Her expression fractured, just a flash of the real Cambria, the woman behind the mask. And then, "You'll regret this." "I already regret marrying you," I said, stepping past her. "Now I'm just fixing it." The air between us froze. I walked away. She didn't follow. Let that silence burn this time. By the time I got back to the brownstone, Jasper was asleep. Claudine, our housekeeper, well, my housekeeper now, had left the nightlight on in his room and a tray of untouched strawberries on the side table. He never ate strawberries when he was anxious. He knew something had shifted. Kids always do. I sat in my office and opened the surveillance folder. Not the grainy images, the audio. I had only listened to the first 3 minutes, but tonight I forced myself through all 47. Cambria's voice, soft and mocking. "He still thinks we're going to some gallery opening." Theo. "He's dull, predictable. He's the kind of man who doesn't notice when the wine in the cellar is rearranged." She laughed. "He notices. He just pretends not to." That's his superpower, denial. Theo again. "So, you're serious about this baby?" "I want something permanent, something mine." Theo's pause was long. "What if he fights you on custody?" "Oh, he won't. I've got a backup plan." The rest was whispered, but the intention was clear. I closed the laptop. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't punch a wall. I just stared at the screen and whispered, "You have no idea who you're dealing with." The next morning, Cambria showed up. Without warning, she rang the bell like she still owned the place. Claudine called up to me, alarmed. I met her at the door, half expecting a scene. Instead, she stood there, clutching a single folder. "Can we talk inside? Please." "No." Her eyes darted over my shoulder, probably to see if Jasper was watching. "I'm not here to fight. I need to explain something. About Theo." I crossed my arms. "You already did. In bed. Multiple times, apparently." Her jaw tightened. "He's not who I thought he was. Neither are you." She thrust the folder toward me. Take it. Inside was a report. Private investigator. Not mine, hers. Theo Vale. Former name, Theodore Vasilakis. Bankruptcy in 2017. Domestic complaint sealed in Chicago. 2 failed partnerships. 1 child support case in arbitration. And worst of all, he was still married. Cambria didn't know. Or at least she claimed she didn't. I looked up at her. Why show me this? She looked pale, her mask slipping. Because I think he used me. And now, I'm scared. You burned down a marriage for a man who doesn't even legally belong to you. Her voice cracked. I made a mistake. No, I said. You made a decision. Now live in it. She blinked fast. Jasper deserves peace. And you are a storm. That landed. She stood frozen, then turned and walked down the steps. Slower this time. Her shoulders weren't straight anymore. The first crack had formed. 2 days later, Jonas filed the motion. Emergency custody, full financial audit, and an injunction against Cambria contacting Jasper without court approval. We had surveillance, witnesses, prenup, financial fraud, everything. Jonas said, "This is going to sting her more than you imagine." I want her to feel it, I replied. Not for revenge, for accountability. But part of me knew it was both. Cambria finally broke. She called me at 3:17 a.m., crying. Real tears, from what I could hear. I need help, she whispered. Theo's gone. He cleared my accounts. He was using me. I didn't see it. I just wanted to feel loved. I listened, and then said, "You don't call the man you betrayed to save you from your own affair." She sobbed harder. "You hurt our son. You poisoned this house, and now you want to reset. That's not how this works." "But Julian..." "No." Click. That was the last time I answered. Theo's wife contacted me first. Her name was Karina Vasilakis, and the message she sent was chillingly calm. If Cambria thinks she's the first, she's wrong. She's just the latest. Jonas had barely finished saying her name when Karina followed up with a PDF attachment. Her divorce filing, dated just 3 months earlier, was damning. It included photos. Theo with another woman, a different woman, this one in Miami, and bank statements showing thousands siphoned off into offshore accounts. The same pattern. Every time, I forwarded the document to Jonas without a word. We both knew what it meant. Cambria hadn't just had an affair. She'd been conned by a serial predator. But the real bombshell came buried in the email's final line. Your wife wired him $175,000 through a dummy LLC last month. I assume you didn't authorize that? I hadn't. She had, and now I had proof. The morning air in the Upper East Side felt razor sharp. Outside the courthouse, cameras had already begun to gather. The story was leaking. Power couple scandal. Art world betrayal. Luxury fraud and a cheating heiress. Cambria had underestimated just how much the world loved to watch the mighty fall. Inside, she looked thinner, but not in a way that evoked sympathy. Her glamour was hollow now. Contoured, yes, but desperate. She wore a cream Alexander McQueen coat she used to reserve for boardrooms. Today, it looked more like armor. Jonas leaned toward me. Custody hearings a formality. The judge has already reviewed the psychological evaluation. Jasper stays with you. I nodded, eyes on Cambria. Her lawyer, a sleek brunette named Daphne Ryland, stood and attempted a polite smile. It didn't land. Your Honor, she began, we request shared custody on the grounds that Mrs. Vale was misled and emotionally manipulated by an outside party during her lapse in judgment. She's begun therapy. She's ceased all contact with Mr. Vasilakis. She wishes to restore her relationship with her child. I didn't flinch. Jonas stood. Your Honor, opposing counsel's narrative may sound poetic, but it's legally toothless. We've submitted proof of financial malfeasance, moral misconduct, and willful deceit. The child in question is not emotionally safe with a parent who prioritized personal pleasure over his well-being. My client has remained stable, transparent, and nurturing throughout this ordeal. Cambria looked like she wanted to scream, but she didn't. She folded her hands, like a penitent schoolgirl. The judge, a stone-faced woman named Mendez, didn't speak for a full minute. When she finally did, her words rang like a verdict from Olympus. Emergency full custody remains with Mr. Cross. Mrs. Vale is restricted to supervised visitation pending psychiatric review. Boom! Cambria's mouth fell open. Jasper was her collateral. Now he was officially out of her reach. I didn't smile. I just turned to Jonas and whispered, "One pillar down." That night, Jasper and I celebrated the way only a father and son could. He wanted pasta and cartoons. I made both happen. We sat on the living room floor, surrounded by cushions and string lights. No lectures, no tension, no pretending. Just presence. He laughed, genuinely, for the first time in weeks. It hit me harder than any of the legal wins. When I tucked him into bed, he looked up and asked, "Daddy, is Mommy still mad at you?" I knelt beside him. "No, buddy. She's just working through some things." He nodded, then whispered, "Can we stay here forever?" I swallowed hard. "As long as you want." That night, I didn't open the surveillance folder. I didn't answer Jonas's texts. I just let the silence be. Sometimes peace is its own kind of revenge. But Cambria wasn't done. Not by a long shot. 3 days later, I arrived home to find the brownstones' front door unlocked. Nothing stolen, nothing broken. But something was off. I checked the kitchen. The fridge was open, 2 eggs cracked on the marble. The espresso machine was still warm. I called Claudine. "I haven't been there since Tuesday," she said. "Why?" I walked room by room. That's when I saw it. The photo frame on my nightstand, the one of Jasper and me on his 4th birthday, was missing. In its place was a note. Just one line. "You don't get to erase me." I didn't call the police. I called Jonas. "Restrain her," I said. "She'll deny it," he replied. "No witnesses, no forced entry." "I don't care. File it. Let her know I know." Within 24 hours, Cambria received a formal cease and desist letter and a preliminary restraining order pending full review. It wouldn't lock her out of my world, but it would corner her legally. Her reply was venomous. "I was there for my son, not for you." But she had gone straight to my bedroom. She hadn't left a toy. She'd stolen a memory. That weekend, Jasper asked if we could go to the aquarium. It used to be Cambria's thing. I hesitated, then said yes. He pressed his nose against every tank, pointing at jellyfish and eels with the wonder only a child can still afford. We ate overpriced popcorn shrimp and took selfies with the sharks. It was normal. It was healing. But when we returned to the car, I saw the envelope tucked under the windshield. No postage, no return address, just my name in Cambria's handwriting. Inside were 2 things, a sonogram and a letter. "You think you've won, but this baby changes everything. It makes me a mother again, and you can't take that away from me. Jasper needs a sibling. He'll understand one day. You'll see. We're already family." I sat in the driver's seat, staring at the ultrasound photo. No name, no date, just a grainy outline of consequence. I folded the letter, put it back in the envelope, and threw it in the glove compartment. That night, I called Jonas. "Get me a paternity test for the baby. Now." He hesitated. "We'll need access. She's not cooperating." Then we make her cooperate. 2 days later, Cambria showed up outside Jasper's school. It was lunchtime. She stood behind the gates, wearing sunglasses too large for her face and a coat too expensive for someone crying broke. She wasn't shouting. She wasn't causing a scene. But she was there, watching. I arrived in 10 minutes. She looked surprised, then smug. "You're fast." "You're unstable," I replied. "You violated the order." "I didn't cross the gate." "You stalked our son." Her voice dropped to a hiss. "Don't you dare call it that." "That's what the court will call it." She took a step closer. "You really think the world will believe you? You, a closeted control freak who built his image on hiding against me, a woman cast aside by a man she sacrificed for? You didn't sacrifice. You gambled, and you lost." Her mouth curled. "Jasper will see through you one day." "Maybe," I said. "But by then he'll be old enough to choose, and smart enough to see who was building and who was burning." That night, I told Jasper everything. Well, everything a 6-year-old could handle. He asked if his mom still loved him. I said yes. He asked why she left. I said some people love selfishly and others love completely. He asked which one I was. I said, "You tell me." He wrapped his arms around my neck and whispered, "You love all the way." I didn't cry, but something in me healed. Cambria's next move came wrapped in desperation. Her attorney emailed Jonas. She wanted a mediation meeting. No press, no cameras, just the 4 of us. Her, me, Jonas, and Daphne. I agreed. We met at her lawyer's office. Cambria looked undone. Her hair was limp, her skin uneven. She wasn't wearing designer anymore, just jeans and a beige sweater. She opened with a confession. "Theo's gone. I have nothing." "I can't even pay my rent." I waited. She pushed forward a small envelope. "This is all that's left. The baby's medical file. I'm 6 months along. It's a girl." I took the envelope. Didn't open it. She looked at me, eyes raw. "I was wrong, Julian. I thought you were cold. But now I see. You were just consistent. I was loyal." She swallowed. "Do you think, one day, she could know her brother?" "You mean Jasper?" She nodded. "Maybe, but that'll be his choice." She looked down. "I want supervised visits. I want a chance to be a mother again." I leaned forward. "Then start acting like one. Clean. Consistent. Quiet. No more ambushes. No more drama. And no more threats." She nodded. It was the first time she looked small. And maybe, just maybe, real. The morning Cambria's face splashed across page 6. She was already losing control of the narrative. A grainy paparazzi photo, her outside Daphne Ryland's office, pale and visibly pregnant, was paired with the headline, "Julian Cross's estranged wife, pregnant with alleged conman's child." By noon, her art gallery's Instagram had locked comments. By evening, 2 of her sponsors had pulled out. And I hadn't said a word. Not publicly, anyway. I didn't need to. The truth was doing the heavy lifting for me. Jonas called me first thing the next day. "They're circling her. The Vasilakis allegations are making traction. Fraud, multiple identities, offshore laundering." He left her holding the bag. "She gave him the bag," Jonas corrected. "Knowingly, there's a difference." "Any luck on paternity?" "Still waiting. She's cooperating now, but it'll be another week." I hung up, poured a double espresso, and turned on the TV. CNN had picked up the story. They didn't use Cambria's name directly, but the art world references were unmistakable. I muted the screen. Jasper padded into the kitchen, dragging his stuffed elephant. "Why is Mommy on TV?" I froze. He held up his tablet. Uncle Simon showed me. Damn it. I crouched to his level. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that catch up with them. He blinked. Like when you eat cake before dinner? I smiled. Exactly like that. He giggled and wrapped his arms around my neck. I hugged him back, but the chill in my spine never left. Later that week, Daphne Ryland called Jonas with a proposal. A televised interview, Jonas said, summarizing. Cambria wants to clarify her position. She thinks she's Olivia Pope now? She's grasping, he replied. She wants sympathy. Let her beg, I said. It'll only make the truth sting harder. But that wasn't the end of it. The next day, an invitation arrived, delivered by courier, a gala, hosted by the Montclair Foundation, annual spring affair. Cambria and I used to co-chair it. This year, she was removed from the committee. I wasn't. The event was scheduled for April 19th, 2 weeks away. Jonas raised an eyebrow when he saw the invite. You thinking of going? I'm thinking of ending this on a stage she can't control. I hadn't been back to the Waldorf Astoria since the split. Everything smelled like memory, eucalyptus and old money. The gala was glistening with power and pretense. Gowns that could fund scholarships, tuxedos worn by men who owned buildings with their names on them. I arrived alone. I wore black Armani and a silence sharp enough to cut glass. Cambria arrived 20 minutes later. All eyes turned. She wore red. It was deliberate. A dress that screamed, "I'm still here." It hugged her pregnancy, dared anyone to look away. Theo wasn't with her. He was long gone. Rumors said he fled to Mykonos to avoid the media storm. She floated across the ballroom like a ghost trying to haunt me. I let her approach. "Julian," she said, breathless. "Cambria. You look intact." She winced. "You shouldn't have come," she said. "Neither should you. I belong here." "No, you did belong. Past tense. The present has standards." Her eyes glittered. "I thought you were done punishing me. I haven't even started." Then I turned my back and walked toward the podium. I hadn't planned on speaking, but the moment called for it. The Montclair director introduced me, said I'd been selected for the Humanitarian Award for my contributions to child advocacy and urban education. I accepted the crystal plaque with a steady hand. Then I leaned into the mic. "I wasn't going to speak," I began. "But tonight's theme is restoration through truth, and that resonates." The room hushed. I stand here not as a victim or a hero, just as a father. A man who's learned that restoration isn't about going back, it's about going forward with clarity. My gaze swept the crowd. Truth isn't loud, it doesn't beg, it doesn't spin, it just is. And no matter how buried, it finds a way to surface. Cambria sat frozen, a marble statue cracking in real time. I dedicate this honor to my son. May he grow up never mistaking wealth for worth or silence for strength. I stepped down to thunderous applause. Cambria slipped out before dessert. Jonas and I met the next morning. "She's furious," he said, tossing his phone on my counter. "She's exposed. She filed a motion this morning." "For what?" "Joint custody. Again, claiming emotional trauma from public shaming." I laughed. "She wants sympathy after what she's done?" "She's weaponizing victimhood." "She always has." "But this time," he said, sliding a document toward me, "we get to play offense." It was the paternity test. Negative. The baby wasn't mine. I stared at the result, emotions tangling inside me like live wires. Relief, vindication, sadness, for the unborn child who'd be born into chaos. "What's the strategy?" I asked. Public filing. Quietly leaked. No statements. Let the court documents speak. And Cambria? She'll spiral. I leaned back. Good. It took 2 days. The media caught wind. Julian Cross, not father of Cambria Vale's child. Court confirms. TMZ had a field day. Cambria's gallery issued a statement that sounded like a ransom note. Ms. Vale will be taking a sabbatical to focus on health and family. Translation: she was out. Again. But she wasn't done swinging. 1 week later, she arrived at Jasper's school with a court order, an outdated one, trying to claim unsupervised visitation. The school called me immediately. I arrived within 15 minutes. Cambria was standing on the curb, arms crossed, sunglasses masking her face. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked. "My rights," she said. "He needs me. He needs stability, not chaos. I'm his mother. Biologically, not behaviorally." She stepped closer. "You can't erase me." "I'm not erasing you," I said. "You're erasing yourself. Every choice you've made since Theo, every lie, every scam, you did that. Not me." She looked like she wanted to scream. Instead, she shoved a folder into my hands. "What's this?" "Proof." I opened it. Hospital bills, therapy receipts, letters from a sober companion. "I'm trying," she whispered, "but you won't let me show you." I studied her face. Broken wasn't the word. Bent, maybe. Cracked in places that might never mend. "Then show the court," I said. "Not me." She deflated. "You'll never forgive me, will you?" "Forgiveness," I said, "is earned. You're just starting the payment plan." Jonas filed a motion for sole custody shortly after. Permanent. No visitation. No parental rights. We weren't playing defense anymore. The court date was set for mid-May. Cambria responded with a single-line statement through her lawyer. "I will not contest. Let Jasper be raised by the only adult in this equation." It was unexpected, but not untrue. I took Jasper to the Met that weekend. He wanted to see the mummies. He gripped my hand tightly as we walked through the echoing halls. I watched his reflection in the glass cases, small, curious, alive. At the Temple of Dendur, he looked up and asked, "Did Mommy live in a place like this?" I knelt beside him. She used to live in her own temple, but it collapsed. He nodded. "Did you build a new one?" "I'm building it with you." His fingers tightened around mine. The final blow came on a Tuesday. Jonas handed me a manila envelope. "Anonymous source," he said. "Arrived this morning." Inside were dozens of wire transfers. To Theo. From Cambria. Over $600,000. Spanning almost 7 months. Embezzled from her gallery. Jonas stared at me. "It's criminal now. Let the DA decide." "And you?" "I'm done." I meant it. I didn't need to bury her. She'd done it herself. All I had to do now was live better. And make sure Jasper never forgot who had stood tall when everything else fell. Cambria didn't speak at the deposition. She didn't have to. The paper trail did the shouting. Line after line of financial records, leaked by the anonymous informant, showed embezzlement, deception, and betrayal that went far beyond her personal relationship with Theo. She hadn't just taken from me. She'd siphoned trust and money from her own career, her own future. And still, she sat straight in the leather chair, shoulders squared like a woman fighting to keep the last illusion intact. But illusions are made of glass, and glass shatters. Jonas leaned close, voice low. "She's going to lose everything." She already has. No, I mean legally. Her board's resigning. The IRS wants in. Theo's gone off-grid. Her gallery's accounts are frozen. I let the silence stretch. What are you thinking? He asked. That this is justice, not revenge. Not anymore. Cambria's eyes flicked toward me for the briefest second, not with rage this time, but something resembling regret. I was at home when I got the call from Montclair Prep. Mr. Cross, there's a woman here asking to pick up Jasper. Says she's the mother. We don't have any authorization on file. I felt a cold spike shoot through my spine. I'm on my way. I arrived in 12 minutes. She was outside, standing by the school's black iron fence, arms crossed, sunglasses on. I parked, got out, and walked right up to her. What the hell do you think you're doing? Cambria pulled off her glasses. Her eyes were swollen. I just wanted to see him. This isn't your moment. Not anymore. I'm still his mother. You've had every chance to prove that. She took a step closer. You think I haven't paid? No, I said coldly. You haven't, but you're about to. That evening, the breaking point came, not in court, not on TV, but in our living room. Jasper had fallen asleep on the couch, clinging to his elephant plushie. I was scrolling through old photos, searching for anything I might have missed. A pattern, a clue, some early warning that could have spared him this chaos. Instead, I found a video, one I'd forgotten, Jasper's second birthday. Cambria was laughing, holding him as he smeared cake across her cheek. Her eyes were full, not just of joy, but belief that she was invincible, that love was hers for the taking, forever. I watched the video 3 times, then I deleted it. Some memories don't deserve storage. The next morning, I gave Jonas the go-ahead. Press release, I said. Joint statement, but only one truth. He nodded. Want me to draft it? No, I'll do it. I wrote it in under 10 minutes. After a long and painful chapter, I can finally confirm that I have full legal and physical custody of my son, Jasper. He is safe, stable, and thriving. While the road here has been challenging, I believe in accountability, not vengeance. Cambria Vale and I are no longer bound by partnership, marriage, or mutual values. May we both move forward, separately and honestly. Julian Cross. Jonas read it and said, "This is a scalpel." I don't need a sword, I said. She's already bleeding. The post went viral in under 2 hours. Comments flooded in. Julian handled this with more grace than I could ever muster. Imagine torching your whole life for a grifter. Cambria just learned what it's like to be out of frame. She didn't respond, not directly, but her lawyer did. A quiet, desperate attempt to negotiate visitation, with conditions, supervised, limited hours, at a neutral site. I said no. So did the court. And just like that, she disappeared. No more paparazzi, no more headlines, no more whispers in the Upper East Side brunch circuit. Cambria Vale became a cautionary tale, and I was finally free of her shadow. That weekend, Jasper and I visited Prospect Park. He raced toward the carousel, laughter peeling from his lungs, all wild energy and sunlight. As I watched him spin, his little hands gripped to the painted horse, I realized something. Peace doesn't arrive with fireworks. It comes in quiet, in the absence of chaos, in the simplicity of a Saturday with your son. I took out my phone and snapped a picture. This was the memory I wanted to keep. The next day, a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. It was from Cambria. I almost threw it away, but I read it. Julian, I don't expect forgiveness. I barely expect this to be read. I've lost everything. Gallery, career, reputation, and most of all, Jasper. I know you won't believe me when I say this wasn't how it was supposed to be. But that doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that you were always the better parent, the better person. I've checked into a center upstate. Therapy. No phone. No interviews. No more pretending. If you ever choose to tell him about me, I trust you'll choose the version that lets him sleep peacefully at night. I'm sorry. For all of it. See. I folded the letter and locked it away in a drawer. Maybe someday Jasper would read it. Maybe not. But for now, he had me. And I wasn't going anywhere. That evening, I received an unexpected text. Unknown number. She lied to both of us. Just wanted you to know. Theo. I stared at it for a full minute, then deleted it. I had no space left for ghosts. The letter sat unopened on my desk for 3 days. Cambria's handwriting was unmistakable, elegant, controlled, the kind of script that once signed gallery deals and gala invitations. It used to turn heads. Now it turned my stomach. I'd already won, legally, financially, morally, but some victories taste like ash. On the 4th day, I opened it. Inside were 2 things, a short note and a copy of her signed confession.
Julian, I've attached my official statement. You don't owe me anything, not a reply or even acknowledgement. But I had to give you this, to make it easier for you, for Jasper, for anyone who doubts what I did. I lost myself somewhere. This is me trying to come back to terms with that. Cambria, I read the confession slowly. It wasn't just a legal cover-your-ass document. It was raw, brutally honest. Line after line, she detailed the timeline of the betrayal, the forged financial statements, the manipulation of our marriage, the campaign of gaslighting she ran when I started noticing cracks. She even wrote about Theo, how she'd seen in him a reflection of herself, hungry, insecure, desperate for power, and how that darkness became irresistible. Her final sentence hit me harder than anything in court. Julian was the one thing I never deserved, and the only thing I truly ruined. I folded the letter, set it aside, and stared at the wall. This wasn't closure. It was an open window with the breeze of grief rolling in. Later that night, Jasper woke from a nightmare. He wandered into my room, hair tousled, dragging his blanket like a tired ghost. "I had a bad dream," he whispered. I lifted the covers. "Come here, buddy." He curled into my side, small hand on my chest. "Was Mommy ever coming back?" he asked suddenly. The words sat in the air like wet cement. "I don't know," I said honestly. "She said sorry." I stiffened. "Who told you that?" "Aunt Marcy showed me a video." I swallowed. "Cambria's sister. What else did she show you?" "Nothing. Just her saying sorry. She cried a lot." I kissed the top of his head. "That doesn't mean everything's okay." "I know. I just wanted to hear it." We lay in silence, and I realized forgiveness and permission are not the same. The next morning, I called Marcy. "You went behind my back," I said. "She wanted him to know she wasn't a monster," she replied. "And what about what he wants?" "What he needs?" There was a pause. "You're right," she said. "I won't interfere again." I hung up. Cambria might be trying to change, but I couldn't risk her rewriting the truth, especially not to the one person who needed clarity more than comfort. Jonas dropped by that afternoon. He handed me a manila folder. "She filed for voluntary surrender of parental rights." I blinked. "You're serious?" "She signed everything. It's notarized. If you want a countersign, this ends everything. Permanently." I opened the folder. There it was. Her name. Her signature. Her final choice. I didn't hesitate. I signed. It felt anticlimactic. Quiet. But sometimes, peace doesn't scream.
We held a small celebration that weekend. Just me, Jasper, Soraya, and a few close friends. No balloons, no cake, just tacos, music, and laughter. Jasper ran wild through the backyard, his energy boundless. Soraya handed me a glass of wine. "You're still waiting for the aftershock," she said. "I don't trust stillness." "You will." I watched Jasper chase fireflies across the lawn. "I think he already does." That night, I scrolled back through old emails. I found one from Cambria dated exactly 2 years ago. Subject line, "Let's start over." It was short. "I want to try again. For real this time. You, me, Jasper. Just us. We deserve it." I remembered reading it and feeling something stir, a flicker of belief. Now, I saw it for what it was, a negotiation disguised as sincerity. That's what made the wound deeper, not just the betrayal, but the manipulation of hope. 3 days later, I received another letter. This one wasn't handwritten. It was from the district attorney's office. They were filing charges, not just against Cambria, but against Theo, too. Wire fraud, racketeering, tax evasion. Apparently, the anonymous tip that triggered it all had included a full list of offshore accounts. Jonas confirmed it. Cambria had turned on Theo. "Why now?" I asked.
"She wanted to be punished," Jonas replied. "But she wanted him punished more." How poetic. "No," he said. "How strategic." Cambria testified in a closed hearing. Her cooperation reduced her sentence. Theo wasn't so lucky. He fled the country, was caught in Prague, extradited, and just like that, the headlines returned. Only this time, they weren't about my divorce. They were about the collapse of a gilded con. And every article used one quote: "Mine." Sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who know how to smile while they steal. I didn't attend the sentencing. I took Jasper to the museum instead. He loved the dinosaur exhibit. "Do you think they knew it was coming?" he asked. "The dinosaurs?" "Yeah. I think some of them did," I said. "But they were too big to believe they could fall." He nodded. "I'm not going to be like that." I smiled. "I know, buddy." That night, I got a voicemail from Cambria's lawyer. He said she wanted to speak with me. Just once. And in person. Jonas advised against it, but I said yes. I needed to see her. One last time. The facility was clean. Cold. She sat at a table, hands folded, hair tied back in a low bun. Not glamorized. Not ruined. Just human. "Julian," she said. "Cambria." A beat passed. "Why now?" I asked. "Because I don't want you to hate me forever." "Then you shouldn't have made me your enemy." She looked down. I was weak. "No," I said. "You were cruel." "I know." We sat in silence. Finally, she whispered, "Tell him I love him." "I'll tell him that you said goodbye." And I stood up. She didn't call after me, didn't cry, didn't chase closure. And that was the most honest thing she'd ever done. Spring bloomed quietly across the Upper East Side, the kind of soft transformation that didn't announce itself, but simply appeared. Petals unfolding along wrought iron fences, sunlight breaking clean through clouds like forgiveness. It had been 7 months since I walked out of that prison visitation room. 7 months since I last saw Cambria's face. And for the first time in years, I didn't wake with her shadow sitting on my chest. Jasper was thriving. He'd taken to building Lego cities and narrating them in full detail. Mini worlds with clear rules, honest characters, and happy endings. Sometimes he'd bring me his latest creation and say, "This is the bank where the good guys keep their money."
I smiled every time. Soraya said it was symbolic. Jonas said it was therapeutic. I said it was peace. I'd moved us into a penthouse on Madison and 79th. Sleek, modern, quiet. A far cry from the Gothic brownstone I used to share with Cambria. A place now stripped and sold, its history erased like her name from my bank accounts. This new place had no ghosts, just floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that reminded me how high I'd climbed. Sometimes I'd catch my reflection in the glass, standing barefoot, holding a cup of coffee, watching the city breathe. I didn't look haunted anymore. I looked settled. Theo's trial wrapped in silence on our end. We didn't attend. Didn't need to. The news covered it well enough. White-collar crime, asset seizure, 18 years federal. Cambria had been moved to a minimum security facility in Connecticut. No interviews. No headlines. Just quiet dissolution. She'd sent one more letter. I never opened it. Some things are better left unread. I was back at the firm now, rebranded, rebuilt, thriving. Clients returned in waves, drawn not just by performance but by reputation. Julian Cross had become a name people trusted. I never advertised what happened, but word got around. And in the financial world, surviving a scandal with grace is rarer than gold. I wasn't just a comeback story. I was a fortress now. Soraya took Jasper for a weekend getaway in June, just the two of them, mother and almost son. I spent that Saturday night alone, for the first time in weeks. I lit a candle, played Coltrane on vinyl, and wrote, not emails, not strategy briefs. I wrote a letter to myself. Dear Julian, you survived. You endured. You rebuilt. But more than that, you stayed soft where it counted. You didn't let them take your dignity. You didn't harden your heart. You fought, but you didn't lose yourself in the battle. And that's the real victory. Love, you. I folded it. Put it in the drawer beside Jasper's birth certificate. A reminder that I didn't just live through hell. I walked out carrying my son. July came. Warm. Still. Familiar. Jasper and I took the ferry to Governor's Island. He ran barefoot through the grass, chasing bubbles with other kids. At one point, he ran up to me and asked, "Are we happy now?" It was a question only a child could ask without self-consciousness. And it broke me, gently. I knelt down. "Yeah, buddy," I said. "We are." I never looked Cambria up again, never Googled her, never asked Jonas about her release date. She no longer existed in our story, only in the footnotes. Jasper knew the truth in age-appropriate fragments. He knew his mother made mistakes. He knew I protected him. He didn't need to know the rest. Not yet. Maybe one day, when he's grown. But by then, he'll already know what a real man looks like. Because he'll have watched one rise every morning, make breakfast, go to work, and come home with love in his eyes, not bitterness. Theo's penthouse was sold at auction. Guess who bought it? I didn't even hesitate. We flipped it, renovated it, and donated the profits to a legal aid fund for underprivileged families navigating custody battles. It was Soraya's idea. Take the ashes of what they tried to burn you with, she said, and build something no one can tear down. So I did. Now there's a plaque in the lobby, in honor of resilience, integrity, and the children we fight for. Cambria would hate it. I slept better knowing that. One evening, I sat on the balcony with Jasper. He was sketching with colored pencils, tongue poking out the side of his mouth like it always did when he focused. "Dad? Yeah? Do you think I'll be like you when I grow up?" I turned toward him. "You'll be better. But I want to be strong like you." "You already are," I said. "You just don't know it yet." He paused. "Do you think people can change?" I looked past him, into the city glow. Yes, I said, but it's rare, and it's hard, and it doesn't undo what they did. He nodded, like he understood more than I gave him credit for. Kids always do. Soraya came over later that week. We opened a bottle of wine, played Miles Davis, talked about nothing and everything. She looked at me after our second glass and said, "You know, you did it." Did what? Rebuilt. Survived. Came out the other side. I shrugged. Still feels like I'm healing. That's the point, she said. You never stop trying. I didn't reply. I just looked at her, really looked, and felt the calm settle in. Not lust, not infatuation, just connection. Real and slow and earned. Jasper had a recital the next week. Piano. He played a clumsy version of Clair de Lune, hit a few wrong notes, started over. And when he finished, he stood up, bowed, and said, "That was for my dad." The applause blurred, not because it was loud, but because I couldn't stop the tears. That night, I tucked him in and stood by his bed for a while longer than usual. "Love you," I whispered. He was already asleep. Didn't matter. Some things are worth saying, even when no one hears them, especially then. I walked to the mirror, not to check for wrinkles or stray hairs, but to see what was left, and what I found was simple. A man, no mask, no burden, just skin and truth. I was still standing, and I wasn't afraid of the reflection anymore. In the quiet aftermath of chaos, there is a particular kind of stillness, not the absence of noise, but the presence of clarity. When everything you thought you needed falls away, what remains is not always what you expected, but often exactly what you needed. This story was never just about betrayal, or even revenge. It wasn't about courtroom victories or financial restorations. Those were the chapters, necessary, painful, and raw, but not the book itself. At its heart, this was a story about identity, about the truth that no title, no relationship, no illusion of perfection can ever define who you are. You are not someone's partner. You are not your career. You are not what was taken from you. You are what you choose to rebuild with what's left. There is a violence in being underestimated, a wound in being lied to by someone who once whispered love into your skin. But the greater tragedy would be letting those lies become your truth. Real power is not found in retaliation. It's found in resistance, in the quiet refusal to be broken by what was meant to destroy you. Sometimes, survival doesn't look like standing on a stage with applause. Sometimes it looks like waking up without anxiety, eating breakfast without dread, walking into your own home and finally feeling safe. Healing is not a single moment. It's 1,000 choices made in the quiet, when no one is watching. And when you've been dragged through betrayal, when the floor has opened beneath you and you've survived the fall, that's when the world reveals what you're really made of. You don't need revenge to feel whole. You need truth. You don't need someone else's apology to heal. You need your own permission to move on. And sometimes the most profound form of justice is not destruction, but distance. To walk away whole, to be more alive than they ever expected. To raise something sacred from the ashes. We all encounter moments when we are faced with a decision, bend, break, or rebuild. And the rebuilding, while painful, is where the soul remembers its strength, where dignity returns to the surface and integrity becomes more than a concept. It becomes armor. There's no perfect ending after betrayal, no bow to tie around shattered trust. But there is something better. Evolution. Growth. A life richer and more authentic than the one lost. And maybe that's the hidden gift in heartbreak. It exposes what was never real, so you can finally make room for what is. If you've ever been betrayed, lied to, abandoned, or humiliated, know this: your worth was never in how others treated you. It was in how you chose to respond. And if you're still standing, heart bruised but unbowed, you've already won more than you think. So take a deep breath. Let go of the questions that will never be answered. And start again, not from the place where you were broken, but from the place where you began to rise. Because the truth is, endings are illusions. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of something real. Thank you for taking this journey with us. If this story touched you, if it made you feel seen or reminded you of your own resilience, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Let others know they're not alone. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another story of strength, redemption, and the unbreakable human spirit. We're grateful to have you here. Until next time, stay true, stay strong, and remember, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after it.